Right folks, and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Lee,
the Evil Wizard.
Welcome. And in today's video, we're going to take a look at mixing up some drums. So let's check this out. So yeah, I put a song out a few weeks back called When the Guns Fall Silent. I nearly forgotten the name of my own song there. I forget my own name sometimes. Yeah, I got some good feedback on that mix, and I'm really chuffed with the mix. And some people have asked me what I did here, or that's a really good sounding bass, really like the sound on the guitars and the vocals, etc, etc. And some people have asked me what I did on certain things, so I thought, you know what, instead of trying to explain it out to everybody individually, I thought, let's do some videos, let's break the mix down, show you what I did, and maybe some of the reasons why I did it. Anyway, so I'm not going to do one long mixing video. I'm going to break it up into the different instrument groups. So we're going to do drums one day, bass, guitars, rhythms and leads, and then vocals and effects on the video, because we have got some sound effects in this song as well. And then I'll probably show you what I've done on the mastering on that as well. In this video, we're going to have a look at these drums. So let's dive down into Studio Pro and show you what I did. So I have soloed the drums out. So without any of the effects on, let's switch all the effects off and all the sends. These are the drums that I started off with. So if your typical sort of sounding, maybe not quite unprocessed drums, but there's not a lot of processing on these drums. Yes, these are MIDI drums, and then this is how they sounded in the end. So what drums did we use to start off with? Right, so the main bulk of the drums, I fixed them up as well. So the drums that we use are Drums Against Humanity. Still one of my favourite drum VSTs. It's got that sort of good raw gritty sound that I like, and the sound I was after for the song as a whole was a more gritty, not totally raw soundy feel, but not an over polished sound. So this just turned out perfect, and all I did on these in the actual VST itself was just bring on the shells, just bring the room mics up a bit, apart from on the extra toms, because they weren't used in the song. On the snares and the other shells, brought the room mics up, brought them down in the overheads a bit, and then swapped it around on the cymbals, brought the room mics down a touch, and odd ones did bring the overheads up a bit. So they are the main bulk of the drums. So then what I did was just then convert all the MIDI drums into audio. Makes it easier for mixing, just means using a bit less CPU on your PC, yada yada yada. It's something I've done for many years, and I know a lot of other producers do it as well. So once I got it down into audio form, we added some extra samples in there. So we've got some slate trigger samples. Now, samples I'm using are the ones that come with slate trigger. I have got other samples as well that trigger files, but I thought, let's have a look, see what I can find that actually come in with slate trigger. So we've got 3 kick ones. We've got this AC kick. What's that one? That's the black kick. Let's get my goggles on so I can see what I'm reading. And then we had a room sample as well, which was just a slate kick SSDR. So I bounced them down to audio as well, so you're not getting the latency from the actual plugin. And then I also used a couple of samples on the snare as well. So I've used the black snare again from Slate Trigger. Both these samples again are ones that came with that come with slate trigger, and then the black snare again, but same again with that as the kick. This is more of a room mic, and it gives you more of a room sound. So we yeet them because we don't need them, because same again, and bounce them down to audio. As you see, I've yeeted a few other tracks out there that weren't used, sort of the extra toms, tom 4, tom 6, so we can get shut of that. So let's break down each individual piece of the kit. So this is the main kick. That's the Alreyt one. And on there, just pulled up the virtual mix track from Slate again. I'm that used to using it, especially on drums. It's one of the first things, especially on sort of rawer sounding VSTs and real drums. It gets me to a sound that I'm happy with really quickly. I've been using it for a good while now. It's used to what I'm using, so I can get there pretty quickly. Yeah, well, I use just normal EQ and compression on other tracks, absolutely, but a lot of times I will use this, like I say, especially on real drums and say something like the older Alreyt drums. So we're just using the virtual channel there just to add a bit of grit and some console emulation. We've got this FGN EQ. We just adding a tiny amount, 3.8k, and that's it on there. And then we're using this called the Lift, and it's got it on a present, so it just brings a bit of those higher frequencies out, and then a little bit of punch in there as well. And then got this SSL style EQ, the FGS. We're just a tiny amount in our 2.5k. We're notching out some of the sort of lower mids. What's that? About 250, 240, yeah, 244, and then I'm boosting a bit at 62k. That just sees that. For this kick, that just seemed to be about the sweet spot. Between 50 and 60k roughly is about the sweet spot. And I'm using the distressor just for some compression. How much compression are we getting on there? Sort of 5 dB. Sometimes I'll go a bit harder on. It depends on the sample itself. But I was happy at that. I didn't think it needed doing anymore. Now I'm just using this Revival, which is sort of similar, not exactly the same, similar to the Pultec. So where you can just sort of shimmer, so it brings back more sort of that topness and thickness for a bit of low end. I do have the trimmer on there just in case I need to just back the volume off a bit, but as you see, that wasn't used. That's all I've got on that kick sample, or on the main kick. And then we have this first kick sample. As you can hear, that's a bit lower in the mix. So this is a bit more of a beefier sounding, snare, the beefier sounding kick. Same again, I'm using the Slate. I think I just copied this over. So I did boost a bit of, let's have a look, 2k there, 2.1k, give a healthy boost there. Same again, a bit of shimmer and a bit of punch or a bit of presence. Boosted a bit more at 3k, and that same boost again, this time at 70 hertz, using that same distressor. Because it's one of the Slate triggers, there's quite a bit of processing on there anyway. Didn't need much compression. Using that same Revival, but just for a bit of thickness, because I wanted this to be that thicker sounding kick. And not using that trimmer again. And the second sample, as you can hear, this is a bit more of the. This is a bit more of that clicky kick. So we've got all the beefiness from the first two kicks. This one I want a bit more clickiness to it. So same again, using the virtual mix rack boost, giving it a healthy boost at 2.8k, about 3 and a bit, 3.7 dB boost. Using that same lift, I do like using that on drums. It just brings something out. On the second EQ, boosting a bit of 5k in there, not too much, about 2 dB. And then we're boosting again at 70 hertz, and then we've got that same distressor on. So 2 to 3 dB, the same Revival on, but this time we're bringing some of the shimmer out, and we're not touching that low end, not using the trimmer. Now, this final sample, like I said before, it was a room sample, and this is quite low down in the mix. And all I'm using on this is just some EQ, just to bring some of that low end out, bit of top end, and just to carve out some of the mid-range. I was just using that just for a bit of sustain on the kick. Yes, there is some double kick parts, but I just wanted to add some extra sustain and a bit of room sound to the kick. Now, these first 3 samples are going off to my drums distortion channel, which I will show you when we've gone through the full kit. All them 4 kicks are going to a kick drum bus. Now, this is something I've stolen off Glenn Fricker. Sorry, Glenn. I'm stealing one of your things here, just so I could add a little bit of extra EQ across all those kicks and for some automation. Now, if I was just going to use it for automation, I could have just used a VCA fader. But I just wanted to use this EQ. Oh, there's a new version. I will download that. Okay, so this is, as you can see, it's a graphic EQ. I think it's a 32-band graphic EQ. And yes, you've got to move each slider individually. I think Glenn said from when he showed this is a similar technique to what they used on the Black Album for that kick. Now, I'm not saying I was going for a Black Album kick. I thought I'll try this EQ out. Similar settings, not exactly the same. So we're boosting some low end, taking all those mids out, and then just giving the top end a bit of a boost. Now, you can either boost them at 12 or 6 dB. 6 dB seems to be the best. And yeah, you can save these as presets. And this is a free EQ, which is even better. We like some freebies around here. So without that EQ on, the kicks sound like this. Sound okay, but with it just gives it that extra oomph. To me, it just gives it that extra oomph, that extra punch, that extra kick in the guts. So that's why I use that. So that's the kicks. So let's move on to the snare. So this is the main snare from the Drums Against Humanity. As you can hear, it's not an over-polished snare. I didn't do a whole deal of processing on this, and as you can see, we've got that same mix rack on here. So without the mix rack on, and then with, so we're boosting oh no, we didn't put any boost in there. I took a little bit out at 700 hertz, got that same virtual mix rack in. We didn't use the punch section on this. I used the big, whichever you want to do, and on the top end, on the high lift. As far as I can have, I think these are shelves rather than certain frequencies, but this time I used the silky setting. Now, on the FGS EQ, we've gone for a healthy amount of 10K, 9.8, 10K, boosted a couple of dB there, some about 3.8, yeah, 3.8K, and then that nice boost there, a couple of dB boost there. Took some mid-range out, same again, around about at that sort of 700 hertz range. I'm finding we're really boxy. And then we've got a boost in at around about 190, 200 hertz. We've got a healthy amount of a boost there. That should be a bell. And then we've got a high pass at what's about 95 hertz. That same distressor, I do like that, this distressed compressor. I think we're getting a healthy amount of compression on this. Again, about 8 or 9 dB. So without that compressor on, so it just brings it out a bit more, just adds a bit more punch. And then we're just using that same revival, plenty of thickness, plenty of shimmer. And I did just trim this down just a tiny amount. It was clipping a little bit, so we just trimmed it down a touch. And then I did use the BSA clipper. So I've just done those harder hits. It's just clipping a bit, not too much. And then on the second snare sample. So I've got the most of the beefiness I wanted out of the snare on that main sample. This was just mainly for the top end. It's quite top endy anyway, this snare. So that's without the processing on with. So as you can hear, I've taken that boxiness out. Oh, we've taken a bit out on the first EQ of around about 800 hertz. This time we've used the presence and the punch on that. Since this is quite a bright snare anyway, all I did was just take a bit more of the boxiness out at 600 hertz and then just took everything out below 66 hertz. Now, how much compression did we get on this? Yeah, same again. 2 to 3 dB. I think it's enough. I didn't use the revival or the trimmer. And then this last one is the room sample. So I'm just using some EQ on this. So without that EQ. Just to take all that low end out that we don't need, just boosted around about 200 hertz, took a bit of the mid-range out, and then boosted a little bit at, what's that, 2.7k. And then same again, all them are going off to a snare boost. So on there I've got this back EQ from Noise Ash. I'm not 100% sure what it's based. I think it may be based off a 1081 EQ or an 81 style EQ. So I'm just boosting some 200 bit K there and then some 10k. And I just dialed the gain down a bit since I was boosting all that sort of top end. And I'm just using the JST clipper this time on the overall snares. So without them two plugins on, it is just making that snare a bit more punchy, a bit more in your face, which is what we like. Now, we have got some send effects on there, like I said, I'll go through them at the end. Next, we've got the toms. Let's find a section where we've got some toms in. Basically, it's the same processing across the whole lot, just some EQ. And some compression. So I'm not a lot around about 3 dB. You don't need a lot of compression on your toms. On the other toms, the processing is basically the same, except we have added a drum gate on there. We've added the BSA silencer just to take that tail end off the bigger toms. So without the silencer on, this is on tom 2. You're getting that ringing, and in the context of a full mix, that can make it sound a bit muddy. Now you cannot edit it out if you want, but I just find that this drum gate does a good enough job. So with that silencer on, you just get in shot of that tail end. It just tidies your mix up a bit. But so I've used the same EQ on all the toms. I've just copied and pasted it across and then adjusted as needed. The same compressor. So it does go up to about 5 dB when you're getting a bit of a roll on there. But overall, it's the same sort of 2 to 3 dB. It's the same on the other two toms as well. There's no problem playing them. So the silencer, the EQ, and the compressor. Now they are going off to a tom's bus, but I've got nothing going off on that. That's just mainly for any automation, or if I feel they are a bit loud, I've just adjusted them on that one fader, like with the kicks and the snares. So next we're moving on to the cymbals, the overheads and the room mics. There was no extra samples used here. All these are the ones that are built into Drums Against Humanity. So these are the cymbals, these are the close mics, if you will, on the Drums Against Humanity. All the close mics go out of one output. I've got them quite a bit low down in the mix because I use the overheads as the main cymbals mics. Just a bit of EQ on there. think I've got the same EQ on going across both. Yeah, same EQ. So that's the cymbals, or the close cymbal mics even. This is the overheads. So we're just yeeting everything out below 240, 250 hertz. If you still want a bit of chunk in them overheads, yeah, sometimes I've taken it up to 1K or just below 1K. It's whatever the mix calls for. On this mix, I was happy at that, so I left it at that. And then we've got these two room mics. So this is the closer room mics, if you will. So without that processing on, as you can hear, there's a lot of kick in there. So I've taken everything out below 100 hertz, taken everything out above 6K, and put a shelf in there as well, just to dampen the cymbals down a touch, and just taking a bit of mid-range out. I have got a couple of boosts in there as well. So yeah, I've still got a little bit of kick in there, but not a lot. Yeah, then I just used this SLP EQ from Panda. From Panda Purified Audio. Panda Studios. That's why there's Panda on there. From Sam Pure, from Purified. So same again, I'm just taking everything out below 200 hertz there. So we were actually getting shut of everything below 220 hertz. And I think it's actually a preset. Now, the preset I tried on this one. I think, what was this one? A preset I used? Yeah, I'm sure it was just a preset I used. Yeah, it was just one of the, I think it was the one of the drum stereo presets that I used on that. Yeah, so you're going to tell me which one? Yeah, so I just used one of the inbuilt presets. It got me to a sound where I wanted it to be, because I think, let's have a look. Have a listen without that on. It just got me where I wanted it, because I think without that it was still a bit boxy, if you will, and a bit too much low end. So I banged that in. It has got auto gain compensation built in, so that's pretty cool. So then I used that, and then I just used the it's a different 1176 style EQ, the one from Universal Audio. And as you can hear, it's just kicking in, if you will. It's just reacting to those snare hits, just to tame the snares down a touch in the room mics. And then we've got this far room mic. So without that processing on, so I've got that's, I think I'm using basically all the same processing on this. So I've got that same EQ in there, that same one from Purified. I think I just copied and pasted it across, and that same 1176. But as you can see there, there's not as much compression because these are far mics, so the snares are not going to be as loud. Now everything is going off to a drums bus, which on there I've just got a tiny amount of EQ, just boosting up a bit of low end and just taking some mid-range out. Close that. Just to add some extra beefiness to the kit as a whole. And then after that, I'm using the Monster 4000. I am enjoying using this compressor. Don't think I've got too much compression going off here. Yeah, one to 1 and a bit dBs. I think when we get into these double kick parts, well, look, I think we might be getting a bit more. Yeah, still getting that 1.5 dB. On a drum bus, you don't need too much compression, especially on MIDI drums. And then I've got the clipper on there, but it's not being used at all. It's just part of my template. I've got all of the shells, apart from the the kick and the snare room samples. I've got all the other shells going off to my drums distortion, which you've seen me use this on a few mixers. Loch Ness, it sounds awesome. I like what it does. Just dial it into taste. So without that on, just adds a bit of nastiness in there. I've got some EQ, just taking the top end off, that's all. The main, and then all the snare samples, in fact no, these first two snare samples and all the toms are going off to my main drum reverb, which on there, I'm using the rotten pool on the clean air pool setting, and I think I just adjusted it to taste. I've put a low cut in there, put the mix up to 100% wet, and I think I just had to just bring the volume up a touch, even though I got in there, this is just in my template anyway. But on this snare room sample, oops, there we go, I've got it going off to 3 different effects channels, and these are all reverbs. Oops, excuse you. So without those reverbs on, it's got a room sound, but with the reverbs on, we've got 3 different reverbs going off here. They are on 3 separate channels, and we've got a chamber, a null-in, and a plate. Now it's the same reverb, or the same reverb plugin, but it's 3 different reverbs. Now this is another free reverb, and I'm absolutely digging this. This is another Glenn Fricker find. This is another thing I got from Glenn Fricker for doing this processing with a room sample, of a snare. But yeah, this reverb plugin, it was Glenn that I must have put me in contact with, but you know, it's one that he showed off. I thought, oh, it's free. It's another freebie. Let's try it out. Now it has got a whole bunch of presets in there, which I will try out at some point. But yeah, you've got all sorts of different types of reverbs in there. I've used the chambers one here, and then you've got a whole section in there as well. And you just boosted the input, and you just took the output down a bit, left the mix right in the middle, and I don't think I touched anything in the middle for that one. And then, like I say, we've got this null-in one because it's on the null-in verb. And same again, just boosted the input, took the output down a touch, just adjusted the low end and the air to taste. And then we've got a plate reverb. Got it on the plates too. The snare plate, 1.2 seconds, didn't touch the input, the output. In fact, I didn't think I touched anything on that. And then all that, including all these effects, are going off to a drums stem channel. And on there, I've got the Sonomus A console, just for some console emulation. Bit of EQ, but it's doing absolutely nothing. Like I say, it's part of my template, just in case I do need it, in case the kicks are taking over a bit or whatever. I can just notch a bit of stuff out there. And then I've just got the JST clip. Let's have a look without them on. I say, what you're doing, you're just building up. You're just doing a little bit with each little bit of the process. You're just doing little bits just to get that overall drum sound. So yeah, all that's going off to that drum stem. But we have got some automation going off, and all I've got automated is the kicks. I've just automated the kicks down when the double kicks kick in. That's all I've done on there. That's the only automation I had across the drums. Without that automation on the kicks, we're getting in the way a bit. So just automate the kicks down, and it sort of gets it out of the way. Takes a bit that low end off. But anyway, there you go. There's the drum mix for that song, When the Guns Fall Silent. Let me know what you think. If you're a mixer, have you used any of these techniques before? Have you used any of the plugins? Is there some new plugins that you've not heard of before? Let me know down in the comments. If you're a band and you like what I'm doing and you're looking for somebody to mix your tracks up, get in touch. Website's down in the description. You can get in touch with me via email as well. The email's down in the description. On the website, I have got a bit of a portfolio on there as well. I am going to add this track into that portfolio at some point. I am really, really chuffed with this mix as a whole. Yeah, let me know what you think. And if you want to grab yourself some Evil Wizard merch,
there's a link to the merch store down in the description.
But that's all from me, folks.
And we'll catch you in the next one.
Right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that video. You can follow me on social media and you can get my music online. And if you want to support the channel, there's Buy Me a Coffee and PayPal links. They're all down in the description. Click up here to subscribe and click the link down there for videos that you may not have seen. Keep it loud and keep it heavy.